Welcome everybody to the Wildside, where bad movies get the love they deserve. Today we're talking about Hellraiser 2022. What's up, guys? Today I'm joined with Uzumaki and Decker Ramirez, as per usual. Introduce yourself, guys.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. I am Decker Ramirez.
And I am the Uzumaki clan.
Once again, it's a pleasure to be on the podcast with you, fellas.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're just here to make sure that we tame the wild man before he goes out of control.
And I gotta say, I'm feeling wilder than usual today.
Yeah, that's going to be an even greater beast to tame.
Can you tame the beast? Asia still hasn't.
Starting off differently because based on reception, this isn't one of those movies that is considered bad.
No.
And needs the extra love. We're mixing it up this time.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some of that YouTube cheddar that everyone's banking in on right now. I'll admit it. I'll admit it.
I will be in the algorithm.
Yep.
I will be the one. Chill gently.
Algorithm.
Algae rhythm. Today we're talking about Hellraiser 2022, and before we get into it, let's each go around talking about our own individual history with the Hellraiser franchise. Let's start with you, Uzumaki.
Hey guys, so yes, my personal history with Hellraiser is kind of a strange one because, you see, growing up, my mom allowed me to watch horror movies, whether it be horror movies from the Friday the 13th series, the Halloween series, or Nightmare on Elm Street series. I was allowed to go into my local Blockbuster and pick up any horror movie that I wanted because my mom left a note for them saying that they had her permission to allow me to rent these movies. And Hellraiser was one of them. And my mom is kind of one of those people very freaked out of Hellraiser. Like, if there was one movie that scared her, it was Hellraiser, simply because she thought Pinhead was scary. She loved Freddy Krueger like Krueger, like every other girl back in the 80s and 90s. She liked Michael Myers, not her favorite, and she did dig Jason, but Pinhead was the one horror villain that really scared her. And I remember renting Hellraiser back when I was 11 or 12, and I remember really loving it. In fact, it was really crazy seeing how Pinhead didn't have that big of a role in the film. He was honestly just like, I'm not going to say villain, but minor antagonist. The real villain in that movie was Frank, which was surprising. And when I went into Hellraiser 2, I saw the same thing, where Pinhead really wasn't a villain. He was mainly just like either a secondary antagonist or just a ruthless force that's there throughout the films. And when we went to Hellraiser 3, that's when it changed my perspective, and he became your usual slasher villain, which I really wasn't that fond of. So the Hellraiser series isn't typically my favorite series, but they do have movies that I do enjoy. Like, I do love the first two Hellraiser movies, and there are some of the other sequels that I kind of have a little bit of appreciation for, like or Bloodline.
Inferno, that's the noir one, right?
Huh?
Inferno is the noir one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, I was pretty skeptical going into this film. I'll share my thoughts when I get asked about our feelings about the film. Go ahead, Decker. You're up next.
I'll be honest. Out of all of us, I probably had like the least amount of exposure to the Hellraiser franchise.
Get out! No.
But I have seen the first two, which everyone says are the best.
This is true.
Like when I was younger, like Hellraiser was one of those things I would occasionally see it, like see the VHS either at either at one of the discount movies or like at Blockbuster, like when you walk down the horror aisle. If I didn't know too much about it, then around my teenage years, I started finding out like what what Hellraiser is about, how the Cenobites operate, the puzzle boxes, and how they tempt the users with their pursuit of like ultimate pleasure, quote unquote.
Pleasure.
It's been a couple years now. We'll say like 5 years ago, maybe, on Netflix when I saw the Hellraiser films for the first time, and yeah, like a lot of effort was put into those films, like with the practical effects, like the slow motion and like claymation. Despite their limited budget, they did not let that stop them from telling like such a surreal story. They're like a atypical villain or a like evil force, like Uzumaki said. Like the Cenobites, at least in the first movies, they're just like observers, or they're just doing their job. Right. It's the when they're summoned, it's because people's curiosity gained the best of them. I haven't seen the other ones yet. When I watched the first two, I already knew going in these were the best of the bunch, while the rest are your mileage may vary. I may check them out sometime, I may not. At least I saw the first two.
So my experience with Hellraiser is interesting. I don't exactly remember when I saw them, but I do remember catching them, a lot of them on the movie channels like HBO and stuff when we had them on the TV back when I was growing up. I definitely saw the first four, which my personal favorites are 2 and 4. A lot of people don't like 4. I do. I actually don't really like 3 because again, it went more in the slasher side when Pinhead wasn't meant to be an actual slasher. He was supposed to be a different kind of thing. The first Hellraiser was okay. It's not my favorite. It was actually probably one of my least favorites of them. The second one is probably my favorite Hellraiser movie, with this one being right next to it, ever so slightly being beat out by 2. Of all the bad Hellraiser movies, in terms of like where they started out as something else, probably Inferno is probably my favorite bad Hellraiser movie. But yeah, I've definitely seen the first 4 all the way through. And I wouldn't say that I'm an actual Hellraiser fan because I don't actually go out of my way to go see them. But I have seen them back when I was in my horror movie connoisseur phase. And especially when they were on TV growing up. But yeah, this one, when I heard that they were making a new one, I was just like, okay, I gotta check this out because I've seen a lot of the other ones. While they're not my favorite franchise, they have their charm to them that catches my interest sometimes. So when I heard they were making a new one, my curiosity was piqued. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out just for old time's sake kind of thing. So we all saw it. I think we pretty much kind of liked it.
Didn't dislike it. How about you, Ozumaki?
Huh?
Would you agree we pretty much came out of the movie liking it?
Yeah. Like I said before, it's not my favorite film in the series, but we'll get more into it when we share our thoughts, our full thoughts on it. I did enjoy it.
Based on like my limited experience and knowledge of the lore I do have, they definitely deviated in some ways, and I do have things to say about it. For the most part, it's its own story, its own rules, and it sticks to those rules.
My understanding with that is it was a remake while being a soft reboot at the same time. So it was like doing its own thing and making some of its own rules, which may work or not work or whatever, depending on what they were doing. But for the most part, I think they did pretty well. And like the puzzle box actually felt like a puzzle box. And each time you solved it, well, we'll get into that, but like it doesn't have just the classic Rubik's Cube shape anymore. It definitely has that, but it's not its only form. So, Decker, you want to plot crunch this thing real quick?
So the focus of this movie, it follows the main character, Riley, who she's going through some trouble. She's got her issues, being a recovering addict, with friends trying to support her. She's trying, but she's struggling. In a little misadventure with her boyfriend to try to make some extra money, she ends up coming in possession of this mysterious-looking puzzle box. But as she fiddles around with the box, she finds that she got more than she bargained for after her brother disappeared after trying to check in on her. After losing her brother to mysterious forces, Riley and her friends try to solve the mystery of what exactly is behind this box, who the previous owner was, and find out the mysteries that surrounded him and how this all ties together and how Riley has to battle inner demons and real demons alike.
Good. I think that's
really
pretty good.
That was really good.
We start out in this big mansion with this big, elegant party going on. And this guy, who I said looked like gay Robert Pattinson, at least that's what he looked like to me. That hair, those tight, yeah.
Cheekbones, honey. It's clearly obvious. It's the cheekbones.
Oh, it's so obvious. It's so, like, he had a great hairstyle. It's amazing. And those tight little jeans. Squeak, squeak. But he's kind of wandering around, and apparently he was invited there for some reason. Like, and he meets with this woman, and she's like, yeah, you were invited by my employer who owns and lives in the mansion and that hall down there. Meet him down there in 10 minutes. So he goes down there. And it's like this treasure cove of some sort where he keeps like prized possessions and all that. And then we run across the lament configuration box, the puzzle box. And then the camera does this turn to reveal it's not just the puzzle box. We first get a visual view of it that makes it look like the square classic Rubik shape. But then it pans around to see like it's more of like a square cylinder shape that gets narrowed in the middle. So then automatically we're thinking, what's this about? So he starts to fiddle with it. Well, here comes the owner of the mansion. Don't remember his name. We're going to call him Hugh Jackman because that's what he looks like. We were joking about it throughout in the entire film.
For the sake of posterity, his name is Roland Voigt.
Okay.
But for ease of access, we will like go back and forth between calling Roland and Hugh Jackman.
He looks like Hugh Jackman, man. He looks like what happens when Hugh Jackman becomes Tony Stark.
Yeah, he does look like that.
So he's like talking with this guy, and he's like, go ahead, fiddle with it, solve it, have some fun. He starts to fiddle with it, and then he kind of stops and looks at Hugh Jackman. He's like, if I solve it, do I get a prize? And here's where his alarm bell should have rang, because mine sure would have. Hugh Jackman just looks at him, and he's like, I do. And then just gives this quick, weird smile. And I'm like, that's when I would be holding that thing. I was like, okay, I set this down. I back away slow. This ain't right. I back away slow. I was never here. But no, this guy just starts to solve it, and he solves it. And all of a sudden, a blade just pops out from where he's holding it and sticks him right all the way through his hand. He pulls it out, and he's like, he starts to get woozy and all that, like he's drugged or something. And then all of a sudden, Hugh Jackman picks up the puzzle box, puts it back on its pedestal, and chain shoots out of nowhere and gets the dude in the thigh and just starts chaining him and tearing him apart. Hugh Jackman just starts to look up at this like glass ceiling at this cloud that's appearing. He's like, I demand an audience. I was like, no more drugs for you, sir.
Yep.
I think you've had enough.
For Hugh Jackman or the guy who opened the box? Yes.
Both. The name of this podcast is going to be Hugh Jackman Opens Hell.
Hugh Jackman. His name is Hugh Jackman. That's what we'll call him.
But,
Cut to 6 years later.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about this.
What'd you forget about?
The sex scene. I forgot about it. I knew about it. I forgot about it until we got there in the movie. I was just like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Basically what we're saying is, like, we just finished that scene where the guy's getting tortured, Hugh Jackman is looking to the sky and all, whatever. Then suddenly sex scene to break up the tension.
Right.
And it's pretty tasteful, too.
Yeah, it's the funny thing. It's not showing anything grotesque or gratuitous or however you say that word. It's actually cutting away from stuff you're not seeing anything more than you need to see, and you're not seeing anything, quote, naughty. It plays that scene very safe visually. Audibly,
watch that on TV. Technically, you could.
Yeah.
Visually, it plays the scene very safe. Audibly, they let you know they're having sex. They're talking to each other. They're moaning. They're groaning. They're rooting around.
And Wildman's all like, "This lucky son of a bitch."
No, I'm like drinking. I'm like taking a sip of drink. I'm like, he's doing good.
You're all like, "I wish that was me, though."
That was me.
Not until later when we got a better look at the leading lady.
So we cut in 6 years later. Recovering addict Riley is living with her brother Matt. Her brother is with his boyfriend Colin and their roommate Nora, which is pretty weird if you ask me. You live in that apartment with those people, with all those people living in there. That's basically a household.
While they're having sex, the boyfriend slips up and says, "I love you so much." And like that, for some reason, makes the girl go like, I'm not into it anymore. Let's go. Cuts to them walking out of the room with putting their clothes on, and like they come into the kitchen living room area with all the rest of the residents in the house looking at them. The boyfriend and the brother meet and shake hands, and the boyfriend leaves. And after he closes the door, Riley just looks at her brother and she's like, "Y'all heard us screwing, didn't you?" "Yeah, we heard you screwing." So after dinner, the brother and the sister are talking, and apparently she's in a 12-step program, and she's been clean for 6 months of some sort of drugs. We never go into what drugs, other than some kind of pills. And he thinks he doesn't like the boyfriend because he thinks it's suspicious that he would hook up with someone that's in a 12-step program. And he's like, he's the responsible. I don't know if he's the big brother or what, but he's just the brother. He's clearly trying to be a good brother and look after his sibling. He's really actually trying. So I think he's the best character, even though he's in the movie the least.
Even he sums it up like this. Matt, I believe.
Yes.
He says like, I'm not trying to ruin your fun, but I'm looking out for you.
Yes.
I don't know. I think Hugh Jackman's my favorite.
He's definitely the best looking one.
We'll get into him.
He's definitely the best looking one. He would be my sugar daddy.
I'm not surprised.
It's Hugh Jackman. Why wouldn't it? Decker, leave that in. I want to be able to listen back to this and hear that whole thing about Hugh Jackman.
Man, Victor, I think you're having too much fun.
I am having too much fun.
I'm all like, oh, geez, I wonder what you were like as a kid.
There's a reason my uncle gave me the nickname Wildman as a kid. Matt tells Riley that he doesn't want her to see the boyfriend again, and she's like, okay, then I won't. And it just cuts to her playing a pinball machine that's in like the boyfriend's apartment. And we look at this apartment. It is huge. It is huge. And there's like hardly any like separating walls. It's all like one giant room with like areas set up. You can tell where areas are and what they're supposed to be because of the stuff that's in that area. But it is huge. And I don't know where this is taking place at. If it's New York, California, LA, whatever. I don't know. What I do know, to have that kind of apartment or living space with that big, you've got to have quite a bit of money. These people are saying they are scraping just to have chump change. If you're scraping to have chump change, you cannot live in that kind of apartment. This dude's got money somewhere. And if he doesn't, he's living in there by less than quote clean means. He's got strings being pulled somewhere if he does not have money in order to live in this place. It is huge.
Okay, guys, I checked out where this is supposed to be. This movie was filmed in Siberia.
Well, we know it's not taking place in Siberia. Because, like, that's just like the new Texas Chainsaw takes place in Texas, but was filmed in Hungary, I think it is. I don't know. It's filmed in another country, but it's taking place in Texas. So, this place was filmed in another country. I think it's supposed to take place in, like, New York or something. Because that's what it looks like. I don't know. But this place is huge! Riley's complaining to her boyfriend about her brother. And, like, he's trying to, like, talk to her and all that. And he starts to let it slip that he has a job coming up that, like, that's less than legal that could get her some money. And, like, he's trying to give her an out not to go with him, but no, I'm going with you, we're going to do this. He's like, all right, fine, whatever. I don't say I didn't warn you. This was your chance to say no. He explains that he works in the warehouses or something, and there's this one warehouse that has shipments coming and going all the time, but, like, it's been abandoned for months and months on end, and, like, there's only one shipment there. So he was going to break in and see what's in there and take what he can find. Riley's like, all right, fine, I'm in. And he's like, all right, I gave you a chance to say no. All right, fine. So they go there. They break in to this container and find that it's a lone safe. Well, they break open the safe and find that it's a little box inside. And then they open the box. Well, there's another box inside of that that's just the configuration puzzle.
When Trevor sees it, is like, all that work for this? Like, oh boy. I don't know if we'll get anything. It looks pretty niche. But then Riley says she'll take it if he doesn't want it. And, like, maybe if they get something, they'll split it between them. It's not the cash grab that they were expecting, but at least they're not going home like it's a waste of time.
Because I'm not stupid, I had seen this, had gone through all this work just to see that as the, quote, prize that we were stealing. I would have been like, why was that the only thing in this giant shipping container? What is going on?
They don't question it in any...
They don't, it's this giant, metal shipping container like you see on barges on ships. And all that's in it is this one safe with this one box that has the puzzle box inside of it. That's all that's in this giant container. Nothing else. You open that safe, and that's all that's in it. I'm going to have some questions.
I know there wasn't, a lot. But even with a cursory glance, when they get to the puzzle box, the box that it's inside has droplets of blood.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if you don't think of cult stuff, you're gonna be like, dang, what kind of action was this in?
The blood belongs to the victim that last tried to hurt Hugh Jackman and found out the hard way.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a knife? I got 3 on each hand.
Shink. That's what happened to the guy in the bar in the first movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, what happens next?
They get home, and then Riley, all of a sudden, she gets into an argument with Matt.
Right.
Understandably so. And Matt, he's fired, man. He's pissed.
He is fired up.
She's drunk.
Oh yeah, and she leaves.
So what happens there is
to a park.
So what happens there is the brother, she and the brother get into an argument, and he's like, "You're drunk, sleep it off, because in the morning you're packing your stuff and you're leaving." And she's like, "You don't mean that." "Yeah, I do." "Then say it like you mean it." He yells at her to get out of my house. "I've helped you enough. I've tried to help you. You don't want help," which is very true. You can't help someone who doesn't want to have help. She just packs her stuff and leaves, and as she walks out the door, she sees her brother's boyfriend. What is his name? I don't remember.
His name was Colin.
Colin, okay. She sees him out the door, and he tells her, "Don't leave. It's just a bad night. Go back to bed. We can talk about it in the morning. You're gonna regret it. Just don't leave. It's just a bad night. Don't worry about it." Well, she leaves, and she goes to her car and finds her drugs that apparently she, I guess, forgot about. And she throws it on the ground. She starts to leave in her car, then stops and picks them up off the ground and takes them. Okay, first off, ew. Second off, you can see that they're starting to dissolve from the moisture on the ground, and then when they're in her hand, they're fine, other than a little discoloration. I'm like, okay. So she takes them. She goes to a playground across the street, and sits on a merry-go-round and starts to work with the puzzle. And this was kind of cool because it's one of those things that could easily happen and easily not happen. She starts to fiddle with the puzzle and she solves it, and another blade pops out, but because she had her hand positioned in a different spot, it misses her hand, and she's essentially escapes the fate that would have happened to her. And the Cenobites aren't happy, so they kind of appear as she's as her drugs are starting to kick in. And they're like, if you're not going to be the sacrifice, then choose another. And it cuts to her brother. It wakes up from a nightmare of being hung on chains. He goes out looking for her and finds her on the playground and picks her up and takes her to the bathroom on the playground property, I guess.
Yeah.
But as he goes to pick her up, he grabs the puzzle box out of her hand and he gets stuck by the puzzle box. And how do you, just by trying to grab it out of your sister's hand with such force and speed that it goes all the way through your hand? The only thing I can think of is it's not so much how much force he put behind trying to grab it. That's just how sharp the blade is. And it's a supernatural force, so that would make sense. He sets her outside the bathroom and he's like, stay awake. I have to wash the blood off my hand. I have to go wash this off. You see a huge split in his hand. It's not a huge split where you can see right through, but it's not going to heal on its own. He's going to need stitches bad. And it's all the way through his hand. So he's going to be in the emergency room a while.
And when he's pouring the water on his hand, he would not be that quiet.
No, it's going to hurt.
I've had water poured on a skin knee, and that surprisingly hurts. Can you imagine how much it would hurt to have water in a gaping wound?
So the funny thing is, I don't think I ever told y'all this, but I had to get stitches in my hand, in the palm of my hand. And
You told me that story, yeah.
Did I?
Remember when I told you that at work my coworker accidentally cut off half of my finger and I had to get 10 stitches, and you told me I had to get that around my hand.
Right. Okay. Did I ever tell you this, Decker?
No, it's news to me.
Okay. I will send you pictures of it at one point because I still have the scar. So this happened when I was 13 years old. I got cut on glass, and it would cut so deep, a millimeter deeper, and it would severed my tendons to my fingers. So it was very deep, and I can tell you more in detail about it later because I go in detail about that story. It kind of gets funny with what was happening at the emergency room.
Okay.
But that's for another time. Just remind me. But as someone who has had stitches in his hand, it's not pretty. My parents were running it underwater to see how bad the damage was, and they're like, "Ooh, oh, ew." I was like, immediately I knew something was bad, and it hurt with that water running over it too.
Oh God, yeah.
Because it's right on, it's right under my pinky on the inside of my hand, and it's a good 3 inches long. And the doctor said you're very lucky because any deeper it would have cut your tendons to your fingers. So yeah, you're gonna be making noise is my point. As someone who knows.
And I'm lucky that it was my finger that got almost cut off because I was allowed to get a shot right there because it was with a wood splitter. Do you know how that shit hurt?
Oh, I can imagine.
I was bleeding out of my finger. I was getting woozy too. My coworker, he was asking me how am I feeling. I said, well, I'm bleeding out. I got my hand full of blood, and it's running, and I can feel a little conscious. I think I might die.
Well, at least you haven't lost your sense of humor. So he's running his hand under the water, and he's kind of starting to get woozy because for some reason, when people get stuck by this blade, they kind of go into this drug-induced kind of state where they can't really move around. They get woozy and they just can't move. And he's starting to get affected like that. And apparently the intensity of this varies from person to person because some people will be like unconscious paralyzed on the floor, conscious paralyzed on the floor. Some can actually kind of walk and move around, and some are just fine. So it varies from person to person throughout this movie. So the brother starts to see stuff kind of moving and shaping around his environment. The brother starts to see his environment moving and warping around him. Like the entrance to the bathroom changes to like a long hallway of some sort. As this is happening, it's cutting to Riley, who is semi-conscious and sees the puzzle box on the ground next to her, morphing and switching and transforming and into a different shape than what it was. And all of a sudden, she just hears her brother's blood-curdling screams. She runs into the bathroom, and he's nowhere to be seen. Just gone. All that's left is just blood in the sink.
We basically cut to the next day, where like the police are trying to figure out what happened. They weren't able to find anything. So we cut back to the apartment, and everyone's just trying to process everything. Riley can barely... She's missing on details. She's sure that, like, I say the blood that was found in the sink, she's very sure that was her brother's. And Colin, he's not, like, being a jerk about it, but he's giving her a hard time because he wants to know where his boyfriend is. Yeah,
he's lashing out in anger and frustration. Mm-hmm. So he...
Which I can understand. I
can understand, too. He says, I told you not to go. And I even said during the watch through, that's not fair. He may have been your boyfriend, but he was her brother. Mm-hmm. So that was very clearly a lash out of anger.
After that argument, Riley leaves to Trevor's. And I'm trying to find a funny way to say it. And when she gets to Trevor's, they take part in the best trauma relief in horror movies, casual sex.
I paused the movie at this point.
It's like Nickelback's song. Nickelback's sex is the answer to everything.
So the name of that song is literally an anagram for sex. S.E. X. Because he uses that as an anagram in the song. But I even paused the movie and I said, and I started quoting lyrics from the song, and I started saying, sex is always the answer. It's never a question because the answer is yes. Oh, the answer is yes. S is for the simple need. E is for the ecstasy. X is to mark the spot because that's the one you really want.
Going back to the horror movies answer to everything. Did you lose a loved one? Casual sex. You're about to lose your house to foreclosure? Start banging. Chased by a monster and you have a moment to breathe? Start banging, baby.
I've done that.
Which adventure? You made it to count?
More than once. I seem to remember a big city overrun with monsters and this cute little redhead. I was like, oh yeah, you'll do just fine. She had a banging motorcycle, so I was like, absolutely, let's do it. We were in a police station for some reason.
You must have been thriving by the time you got there. I've had enough zombie killing today or monster killing. I need to release some tension. You'll do. Come here.
And oddly enough, she was okay with it. I was like, well, aren't you a little treat?
I'll finish up the recap and then either you, Wildman, or Uzumaki can take the next segment.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to help my grandfather for a minute. Which part of the movie are we at?
We're at the part where Riley arrives at Trevor's. They finish having tension relief sex.
Well, apparently the Cenobites interrupted, but like she's seeing them as hallucinations somewhat, but she hasn't realized what they are yet. She thinks it's like part of the drugs, but she's like, I've taken this step before. It's never made me do that.
Yeah, I was basically going to get to the part where they discuss like all this stuff happened since they found the box, and like they're going to find out like who is the previous owner, and so on and so forth.
And like she starts to research Hugh Jackman and found that like he was into all this weird stuff. All these people disappeared 6 years ago and had connections to him, and then he disappeared and decides to go to look for answers at his mansion, which apparently isn't that far from him. But then they decide to go and see this one woman from the beginning of the movie that was like worked for him, but like she's in this nursing home now for whatever reason. And I think I had to step out at this part because when I came back, she was being attacked by the Cenobites, so I don't remember what happened.
Apparently she was Hugh Jackman's lawyer.
Okay.
Apparently. So like when they get to that nursing home, Riley tries to ask her some questions, and what's the lawyer's name?
I don't remember.
Susanna, I think?
Old lady.
Serena.
Yes, Rita.
Serena is being asked questions by Riley and Trevor. She's like kind of being vague, but she's basically trying to say, I only did one job for Hugh Jackman. After that, I never went back, never helped him out again. So like, I'm only going to be so much help. At some point, Riley shows Serena the box, and she clearly recognizes it. She's saying like, where did you get this? And she also recognized it's not its first form. Did you try to solve the box?
She apparently knows at least some about what this thing is and how it operates to some extent. Because she like tries to take it from them, and in the process of taking it, the blade stabs her, and she understood what this meant.
Like she even like tried to make it clear to Riley, like it's not her fault. Like, I did this to myself. I should have known better. But yeah, like it's one of those things where like if you knew better, then I certainly didn't stop you and Riley trying to pull it away from each other.
Like if you know what it can do, why even try to touch it in that sense? Like just explain to him, just put it down and we'll talk. I won't go near it. You don't go near it. We're just going to talk, and so I can explain to you what I know about it. Because you mess with this thing in just the wrong way, it will kill you. Explain to them, and they would be more willing to set it down so no one gets hurt.
They'd be more willing to cooperate, and even if they still have to investigate, they'll at least have like a bit more knowledge than they did before. Just that much more prepared.
Yeah.
No, everyone's got to be irrational. But then again, that's what causes things to happen in horror movies.
Yeah. So she gets stabbed by this thing, and she's bleeding, and
I'll let you get back to it. Not too much happens after this. Trevor and Riley, like, they have like just like a little quick argument. She's so like no pun intended, she's like so hell-bent on figuring out what's going on. This box has something to do with all this. And Trevor's just trying to tell her to like go one step at a time, like try not to like be rash about it. She doesn't want to hear it, and then they drive off.
yeah.
And then things get freaky for Miss Serena.
That's right. So they wheel her back to her room, and then as they're wheeling her, she's looking down hallways. And this effect happens so many times in the movie, but it's freaking cool how they do it. You'll see, it's a sign that a portal is opening up, but like a wall or the floor or something will like collapse in on itself and like pull apart or sink into itself, and you'll see stairways appearing or hallways appearing where there weren't any. Which the coolest transformation happens later in the movie, but we'll get to that. But like as they're wheeling her past this one hallway, she sees that happen, and she gets this look on her face like she understands what's going on. And they wheel her back to her room. She hears and sees this one Cenobite walk past her room, but apparently this Cenobite can't see. It's always like gasping for air, like it's suffocating. And it operates by hearing, by sound. And she starts to get up real quietly and starts to walk off, but she has like an oxygen mask on. And because of that, it pulls off of her and like knocks her oxygen tank over, which alerts that Cenobite and it comes into her room. But she's real quiet and is able to sneak around it. And she starts running down these hallways, and like the hallways themselves start to get a weird lighting effect on them. And there's this one part which I thought was kind of cool. She walks in down this one hallway, and behind her is another open hallway to like their world. And like you see this weird like spinning thing, what looks like flags of flesh spinning around on it. She looks, turns back, and like goes down a different hallway. But each hallway she goes down, there's another Cenobite, and they start to surround her. And like she's getting down on her knees and saying, I'm sorry. And one Cenobite like puts a needle through her. Is it through her throat or in her mouth?
This one's like pretty open-ended. The Cenobite puts like the serrated needle into her mouth, but then it cuts to the real world after that.
But the Cenobite says, save your breath for the screaming or something.
Yeah. So, okay, let's see. What happens after that?
I don't know, but it was good.
Riley and Trevor having like one more conversation, and like basically he says something, or like he tries to like take the box away from her. I think that's how it is.
What led to that was she was like in his apartment and she was looking down at his car where he was. He's on the phone and he says that he got worried about that old lady's wound and checked on her, but the nursing home said that she disappeared, and they both start freaking out. So that leads to him trying to steal the puzzle box and Riley getting mad over him at it.
She basically says, I thought I could trust you.
Yeah. You don't ever want to give a drug addict a reason not to trust you. You have to always be really careful what you do or say, because with how scatterbrained they are because of whatever they've been on, they could take it in a completely different direction. So you always have to be careful and not give them any reason not to trust you.
The next day, she drives to the mansion by herself. The mansion that was owned by Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman's doing really good for himself. He must have been doing really good on the Logan movie.
Like the first thing you see from the building is like this cage around it.
Not just around it, but it's like over the building itself, like a barrier.
Yes. But she manages to get in and notices like her place that's abandoned. It sure seems to have a lot of power.
Yeah,
Finds the circuit breaker and starts like flipping switches.
I said that
doors and walls are moving even though no one's been here forever.
So that's the funny thing. Now, when I see that, my brain first goes to like, okay, this place is supposed to be abandoned for 6 years. It has power. It should not have power. Someone is living here. Now, that would be under, quote, normal circumstances. This dude's a billionaire, so there could be any number of reasons that it still has power. He had it in a will, a lawyer, legal reasons, a friend, or whatever. Like, any number of reasons. But normally, in that kind of situation, a place is supposed to be abandoned and bills have not been being paid, the power is going to be shut off.
Right, and the power's yet on.
Unless he has like some sort of home generator that does it. But like normally it's not going to have power. So if it has power, someone's living there.
Maybe he has it out for a rental. The place looks pretty nice though.
I'm trying to remember. Like, was there anything important like that happened like right before? Wait.
She finds his journal. She finds Hugh Jackman's journal, and it's all about how he had to get buffed for Wolverine. She's going through his journal. He's detailed how all the Cenobites look. The puzzle box has like 6 different configurations offering a different gift they can bestow on you after 6 sacrifices. And then it allows you to have an audience with the Leviathan, their quote, God. And that's when she sees the apparition of her brother, which I was thinking, is that really supposed to be her quote, brother? Or is that the Cenobites and the puzzle box trying to lure her in, trying to entice her. Look what we can give you. Look what we can offer you. Just give us some sacrifices and you can have your brother back. Like a worm on a hook. I was like, is that supposed to be what that is? And what happens later in the movie, I tend to think that's what that is. After she sees the apparition of her brother, the boyfriend, the brother lover boy, and the roommate all find her. And she's trying to explain to them what's going on and what she found. The boyfriend just wants to get out of there and leave everything alone. Roommate is like kind of like indifferent. She just wants to know what's going on. Where the brother lover boy, Colin, is just trying to understand what's happening. He wants to understand. He's just not sure what to make of it. So they're sitting down in that dungeon area where they're at, and like they're kind of like looking like, what is this place? Riley's like, I think it's a sex dungeon. As they're talking down there, the boyfriend and the hot Asian girl are upstairs kind of talking. He's found a bar. He's trying to make drinks, and like she's kind of wandering around. Well, he goes wandering around, and she goes back behind the bar and starts flipping all these switches. Well, one of the switches opens a secret passage. She goes in it, and it closes behind her. And the boyfriend comes back and is trying to figure out where she went. He hears her through the wall. He goes back and tries to flip all the switches. And I'm sitting there watching, like, seeing how long it's taking him to go through all those switches. I was like, I can flip all those switches in half the time it took him to switch all of them. Regardless if they were actually, quote, stuck.
Even with circuit breakers, unless they're like rusted shut, they're pretty easy to like at least switch them on and off.
And as we find out soon in the movie, they have been in use, so there's no reason for it to be taking them that long.
Just when it seems like Trevor's about to like find the switch and get Nora out, a mysterious figure has the puzzle box, switches it so another blade pops out, and stabs poor Nora in the back.
At that point, I was screaming bloody murder. No! No! Not my hot Asian girlfriend! Don't do it!
Not best girl!
Not best girl! I haven't seen her boobs yet! No!
Best girl!
Best girl, no! She's supposed to be best girl. She's supposed to be the last girl. Last girl standing, no! But alas, her fate is sealed.
So like finally Trevor gets the door open and like manages to bring Nora to like
No. I don't remember if he actually gets it open. She's running throughout the secret passage and winds up coming out of a door in the sex dungeon where Colin and Riley are.
Yeah, you're right. She found her way out on her own with the puzzle box stuck out of her back.
And they pull it out and they're like, oh my gosh! Like I'm like, no duh, did you not think it was gonna be deep? And like they're trying to hold pressure on it. The boyfriend comes running down. It's like, well, what happened? Like, what happened? And he's like, I don't know. What happened? I don't know. What happened? They're like, great. Neither of us know what happened. Let's get her out of here and get her to a hospital. Great idea.
Yep.
They get her inside the van. She's in the back of the van. And because she was stabbed, she's starting to go into that drugged state where she can't really move. She's just paralyzed kind of thing. They get her into the van. Her and Colin are in the back of the van. And this is a Scooby-Doo style van. There's only the two front seats and nothing in the back with plenty of storage space. So they can lay down.
Yep.
So Colin is trying to apply pressure to the wound, and like they're driving, trying to get out of the estate. And every so often as they turn, you see like the ground sink in and form steps in a square hole. You see this happen several times as they're turning and trying to maneuver where to go. It's not clear if they see it. I don't think they do see it.
Looks like the road is being affected. Like
yeah.
Like the turn, like it's all one straight line.
Yeah, like they're saying like there should have been a turnoff. This road shouldn't be as long as it is, kind of thing. Reality is warping around them. But they're not seeing as much of it as the girl in the back that was stabbed is.
Oh yeah.
I was even getting like Evil Dead vibes, like in part 2 when they try to get away from the cabin.
This leads into the coolest warping transition scene in the movie. Like from our world to their world. It leads into the coolest transition scene. Hot Asian girlfriend is laying helpless in the back of the van.
van.
She's looking out of the back windows of the van, sees like a huge red tint to everything outside the windows. She turns her head and sees everyone at the front of the van with Colin like leaning over the seats, looking around. And they're slowly getting farther and farther and stretching out, getting farther away. The space in between her and them starts to form a dark hallway. And it goes from her sitting in the back of the van, laying in the back of the van, to laying on a cold stone floor, to the point where like they're just faded away. They're not there anymore. It was so cool looking. So she's now in the Cenobite world, wherever that is. She's kind of getting up, looking around, like, hello, hello. And like around the corners, the Cenobites come up to her, and Pinhead starts to come up, and like she gets stabbed with all these hooks. Take it away, Decker. My voice is wearing out.
Like poor Nora, she's like barely able to stand, and then from right from behind Pinhead, or just the Hell Priest in the credits, chains come out from the distance behind the Hell Priest. They start at Nora's ankles, and she falls down, tries to get up, two more right into her shoulders. You can see some of the bone and the tendons, and she's like a few more coming.
It was gnarly.
She's like suspended, practically bent over backwards, and it's like one of the more painful chain scenes, to be honest. And that's just a setup.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the actual kill yet.
And like she's being brought forth to Pinhead. Like, I don't remember all the words exactly. Nora asks, "Why are you doing this?" Pinhead basically goes into like this mystical, like, we're showing you like true pleasure through all the sensations, and before we're done, you will feel every sensation imaginable.
So Pinhead takes one of the pins out of her head and sticks it in this girl's throat.
Oh, yeah.
Like, from one end all the way through, sticking out the other. And it's like, it basically boiled down to like, singing in heaven isn't really singing. These screams and these pains, now that's is something to sing, or something like that. Something along those lines. It was really weird, but like, I got what they were trying to do. I was like, you're one sick, twisted chick.
I'm not sure I like it. Part of me does, and I'm not sure that's okay.
It's one of those things where, like, I would never do this. The Wildman character, when I say this, it is completely the Wildman character, all right? It's one of those things where, like, I'm not sure I would want to have sex with you, because if I did, I'm not sure my penis would be there anymore. And if I was to stick it in you, I think it would be lined with razor blades and sharp objects inside.
And the Wildman character? You only live once.
The Wildman character. Oh my gosh, if we're doing the Wildman character with the healing factor, it'd be like, ow, ow, all better, ow, ow, all better, until finally we're like, done.
I'm not sure I enjoyed it. Like, I had fun, but would I do it again?
It's the one time where like the Wildman is like, I had fun. It was quite an adventure. But I think once is actually enough for me. It's like, ow, ow, ow. Oh, 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 ow, 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 ow. Oh, oh, ow.
So, after that last dialogue, Nora was like, I don't know if it was like adding to it. I mean, who am I kidding? There's no mercy for the Cenobites. Like, just when you think it could get, just when you think the pain is at its peak, basically the skin of her back is flayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like.
This was kind of cool.
During the watch, this is the scene that you did not like, Wildman.
Yeah, this was the one scene that I was like, well, okay. What happens with Hugh Jackman later made me wince just because of the idea of what was happening to him. This scene was like the one I was like, oh no, I just can't watch that. So like Chatter, which is like the fan favorite Cenobite besides Pinhead himself, is like grabbing a hold of this chick's head, and like you see blood dripping on him, and like all of a sudden all the skin of her back just rips off, and she falls to the floor, spine exposed and all. And I was like, oh no, oh no. No, do not do.
Remind me to, when you were like, oh no, like all that, remind me to save that as a clip for you. And if it's okay, I could use that in my videos too.
Go for it. Go for it. I'm so glad I could help you with that.
But yeah, just as that happens, they see something's happening to Nora, but they don't know exactly what.
This was the cool part of that scene. When she falls down on the ground with her spine exposed, blood splatters on the inside of the van where she was laying before, where she's not anymore. And then they all see the blood splatter on the floor and she's not there, and they're like, what the? As that happens, they crash on the side of the road into a ditch and like, well, I guess we're walking.
At this point, Riley's had enough. When the others are trying to figure out, like, okay, what are we going to do now? She grabs the box and like gets away from them. At first I thought it was like for their safety, like I'm gonna do this alone, no one else is gonna get hurt. Apparently they were right over this bridge with a big river. Riley's seconds away from throwing it over and just like not having anything to do with it anymore. But then she hears the voice of Pinhead, stop. It's like she's basically trying to entice Riley, saying like 6 sacrifices are all that's needed to like have your desires met by the Leviathan. And you're only like 2 away. We want you to choose the next victims. Riley says, no, I don't want to do this. And for extra incentive, Pinhead basically says, we will not be denied. She like controls the box so that it like slices Riley's hands open. So whether it's Riley's life or someone else's, someone is going to die.
She says this, your blood is in our hands now, but we leave the box in your hands. Like, we can take you at any time, whenever we want, anywhere, kind of thing. So basically saying, we can take you whenever we want. We're giving you a chance to get out. And, like, the funny thing is, I'm like, from the time she says that to the end of the movie, I'm like, how much time were y'all really going to let her have? Like, because it looked like you were not even going to take her. Bill Collector scare tactic.
That's what the cut was for. They just wanted Riley to do the job. They just wanted to make sure she would actually do it.
True. Because, like, yeah, that's the thing. So, I didn't make this connection until now. Hugh Jackman, at the very beginning, apparently was the guy that, like, owned the box and was having people solve it and mess with it for him. So, essentially, Riley is in that position now. In this continuity, there's always a person that has, quote, ownership of the box and has to have other people mess around and solve it and get sacrificed while they possess it and just give it to them like, hey, check this out, kind of thing. Like that kind of role. Didn't make that connection until now.
So after that haunting speech, the others find Riley. You notice that, like, now she's been cut. At this point, they still haven't made the connection that, oh, if you're cut, like, that's when the Cenobites come after you.
I think they are starting to figure that out because they run up on her and see that she's cut and they're like, oh no, maybe, I'm not quite sure, but like the boyfriend's like, it doesn't matter, we'll go, we gotta get back to the mansion. So they're at the gate of the mansion. Well, at this point, the Hell Priest lets Chatterer come after them. They're running. I don't know why, but Chatterer tends to be like the fan favorite of the Cenobites other than Pinhead himself. I'm not exactly sure why. I just know that he is. So if anyone has any information on that, please comment below, because I would like to know why. So Chatter is chasing them to the front gate. The boyfriend and Riley climb over the fence where Colin falls and is starting to cower in fear, and Chatter just walks right by him up to the gate and, like, how do I describe this? He pushes the gate back in on itself, trapping Riley and the boyfriend. The boyfriend is trying to punch Chatter in the face and all that. Well, Chatter grabs his arm and bites into his bicep and rips a chunk out.
All right, I gotta say this. I've only seen this in the first 2 movies. Chatterer actually biting someone, that happens very infrequently, does it? Like, it doesn't happen as nearly as much as you think it would.
I actually think that, for me personally, from what I remember, and I'm sure someone can point something out in the comments, but I think this is the first time Chatter's bitten someone.
Like, you would think it would happen at least a handful of times.
Yeah. especially with those pearly whites he's got. And like, how does he keep those pearly white considering everything that goes on around him? That's what I want to know. I want his toothpaste. So at this point, Riley stabs him with the blade on the puzzle box. After she stabs him, he steps back and kind of like puts his arms extended out as if to like, I'm here. And chains come out of nowhere and tear him apart as a sacrifice. And she's like, oh, wow, it'll accept them too. Which is kind of weird. But okay, whatever. It gives them an out.
Yeah, like for the sake of the story, like it gives a glimmer of hope. It's interesting how Chatterer, from the moment he was stabbed to when he was torn apart, he didn't resist. He just like looked at where he was stabbed. It's like he accepted his fate. Like, I guess this is happening. I accept what is going to happen, come what may.
It's like some sort of weird, twisted version of a martyr or something. At least, I don't know, that came to my mind.
Like, when you see Chatterer's death, like the people that like had Chatterer as a fan favorite, it's either going to be the worst part of the movie, or this is going to be an oh shit moment. Like, not even the Cenobites are safe from their own rules. One of the longest running Cenobites, he fell in the trap, and he didn't fight it. He just, like, the time has come. At least according to this movie, the Cenobites don't have a get-out-of-jail-free card.
And, like, I want to know what is going on in Pinhead's head when he, she, whatever, sees this. Because I can't get a read on Pinhead. Is she mad? What is she thinking? Like, what's going on?
Was it, like, so inconceivable? Was it so inconceivable that the Cenobites could fall into their own trap? Was like, oh, like, this hasn't happened in a long time. But I think if that was the case, they would have had at least one line.
Yeah.
The whole time, like, she's just observing this whole thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, and like Wildman says, she's like unreadable. Is she upset? Is she surprised? We don't know.
Like, that's the best way to put it. She's observing everything. Like, she just stands back and just watches. I don't know who played Pinhead. I didn't bother to look it up because I just didn't.
Her name's Jamie. Her name is
For the one person who may riot if we don't.
Jamie Clayton.
Yes, Jamie Clayton plays the Hell Priest.
Good, I don't care.
She's been in the series on Netflix that my sister watches called Sense8. And she was also in a show called The L Word.
So, it's really interesting because, like, I like her performance for the sole reason she acts more like what you would expect a, quote, hell priest to act like. In terms where Pyramid Head, wow, okay, Doug Bradley played Pinhead as more of like a force of nature, for lack of a better word.
He just is.
He just is.
Right?
He's like a force of nature and like has authority or something. Where like this chick plays Pinhead like you would expect a hell priest to act, if that makes sense. Any kind of sense.
Yeah, like she has more gravitas. Like she's a lot more vocal. And Doug Bradley.
Well, Doug Bradley was very vocal too.
I mean, like Doug Bradley's Pinhead, like when he spoke, you listened. Mm-hmm. But this version is like she wants to make sure you hear her.
Yeah, she also kind of like, again, she also entices, making sure that you'll do what they want you to do. Kind of like a, don't you see what we can offer you? Isn't this what you want? Look what we can give you. Trying to put all the enticing hooks that she can into you to make sure their purpose for you is fulfilled. The purpose that they want is fulfilled. Not leaving any loose ends as much as they can. That's the best way I can put it. So they kill off Chatter and they make it to the mansion and they flip some switches and realize, hey, these bars keep them out. They give boyfriend some sedatives and let him pass out on the couch. Well, at this time, after they're all kind of talking, the mysterious figure returns and grabs the boyfriend and wakes him up from the couch, and we find out it's Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
But Hugh Jackman isn't what he used to be. He's more looking along the lines of what he did with Logan without the beard.
Yeah.
He has this weird contraption on the front and back of his torso. It's causing him extreme agony.
Yeah.
Someone else take over because I'm starting to get tired.
So it's revealed that Hugh Jackman and Trevor actually know each other. When he confronts them, the first thing he asks, why isn't the box complete? Like, it should have been done already. And Trevor tries to assure him that we're already so close. We've already got like 5 sacrifices. Just be patient. And Hugh Jackman's like, oh, be patient. Okay, I'll be patient. It's like, I'll show you how patient I am. He applies pressure on the bite wound on his arm.
He's like, says something like every second is a lifetime. Because again, he's in constant agony for 6 years because of this weird contraption that the Cenobites put on him.
At that point, that when they finish the conversation, he just says, get the job done. If you're as close as we say they are, get it over with. And then he walks off.
In this part, Riley and Colin, they trap the Cenobite, what was its name? It's the weird looking.
Is the one that's constantly gasping for air.
That one with that weird thing on her head.
What they do is they go outside, lure it in, it chases them, and they flip a switch, and it gets trapped in one of the gates that closes in on it, and it just gets trapped there. But
Hugh Jackman comes in. And he stabs Colin
because Riley drops the puzzle box while she's running away from it, and she tries to get Colin to find it, but it's already gone, and that's when Hugh Jackman stabs him. And the whole reason Hugh Jackman is doing this is because he wants that Wolverine body again and easier to maintain it.
Yeah, that's what he wants.
I want the healing factor I used to have.
He's doing this to get back in shape for Deadpool 3. He figured it was easier than the way he's always done it.
Yeah. However, his reward, or so they like to call it, it was a contraption attached to him that twists his nerve endings. Yeah, and it's basically leaving him in constant pain. I mean, like going through his body to the point. And I gotta give the CGI team this. They did have it a way where when I was watching the scene, my stomach looked like it wanted to turn because you can see all of the blood and the detail and stuff. You see the spine.
So I don't think the contraption that is on him is CGI. I think that's an actual thing they just attached to the actor. But when it activates, because like apparently it activates and then stops for a little while and then activates again, but when it stops and starts is completely random.
Yeah.
But like when it starts, he just reacts in pure agony, and you can see the agony on his face. And like he said that it twists his nerve endings. So like this whole contraption starts from the top of his chest and stops to his low stomach, and the same amount of area is covered on his back. It's his entire midsection. And it's just constantly going. He's been going through this for 6 years. That's only Hugh Jackman can do this.
I know. So when he completes the configuration, he traps the Cenobites, and he is demanding that they ask, what was it, like the Leviathan?
Yeah.
To free him and stuff, saying, no, you take this damn thing off me. I've had to suffer through this for 6 damn years. This thing you call a gift.
So what it is he explains that throughout his life he sought diverse in all the pleasures life could offer him, and he said, I wasn't satisfied, so I went to these Cenobites and I was like, hey, I want sensation, I want pleasure. Well, their idea of pleasure is not the same as what we would expect for pleasure. He's like, whatever they're offering you, don't listen to it. It's a lie. It's a trick. All they have to offer is pain. And so he traps all the priests, and he's like, I have trapped the Leviathan's disciples. Take this thing away. Get it off me. And he's Pyramid Head, Pinhead. Why do I keep calling her Pyramid Head? It's because of Matsuri. That's why I saw a sexy Pyramid Head and I can't get her out of my mind. I have pictures to prove. I have pictures. So what it was is like Pinhead says, once you've given a gift, you can't take it back. You can only exchange it for another one. He's like, I didn't build a fortress, I built a cage. And Pinhead is kind of impressed, kind of astonished, surprised. All this to get our attention. Perhaps we gave you the wrong gift. Perhaps what would suit you best is power. The Leviathan configuration.
So the Leviathan, it appears in the sky above the mansion.
And as it appears, it shows like this weird convergence thing where like the mansion is also overlaying its own world, because you see like the maze, the Leviathan maze, all around the mansion itself. Like it's like peeks through its world.
Right. So what happens next is that Riley retrieves the box, and all of a sudden she unlocks the steel doors. She lets the Cenobites in. And then Riley goes out, saves Colin from torture by stabbing Trevor, which he was a douchebag anyways.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention.
It's revealed that Trevor worked for Hugh Jackman.
It was revealed that Trevor and Hugh Jackman knew each other.
Yeah.
But Hugh Jackman actually spilled the beans.
Right.
Like right after Colin was stabbed. When he first shows up, Riley's like, "Oh, it's Hugh Jackman." He's like, "He's still around?" He's like, "In the flesh." But you already knew that, didn't you, Trevor? Like so on and so forth. So everyone knows that Trevor is the bad guy. Like when Colin like tries to get away, Trevor follows after him before they're caught off by another Cenobite. And later, like after Riley gets the Leviathan configuration, that's when she goes to save Colin. And to the surprise of no one, when Trevor tries to like grab her, she stabs him with it.
Yeah, and she also chooses him as a new final sacrifice.
So here's the thing. So Trevor, the boyfriend, was supposed to get this puzzle box to Hugh Jackman. My question is, what exactly was the plan? Was Trevor supposed to get 6 sacrifices for Hugh Jackman? Or were they supposed to do it together? What was the plan? Because if they made it clear that things kind of went sideways but kind of came back together, things didn't go all according to plan. What was their plan of action?
Trevor was basically a new pawn. He didn't say exactly what he would get as a reward. Basically, he was just a mook.
Yeah, I'm assuming he was going to get paid a lot, but was like Trevor's supposed to go out and find victims for the puzzle box? Was he supposed to just give it to Hugh Jackman and he do it, or they do it together? How are they going to go about doing this? And then Riley just stumbled in on it and did it for them. How are they going to try and do this?
Trevor, he was going to like give the box to somebody, find the victims that way. It's just that Riley got mixed in, and
which he did on, which was his fault anyway.
Yes, it was.
All he had to do was just keep his mouth shut. Because, like, when he's revealing this, when he's telling his girlfriend at the time that, oh yeah, I got a job, he already knew what the job was and what was inside it. So, knowing all of this, why tell her any of it?
I guess he expected her to, like, get cut. The fact that she lived and, like, the Cenobites were using her to get victims, that threw a wrench in the plan.
Okay.
He probably brought Riley in to have her killed, and then Trevor would move on to the next person.
Oh,
like,
you think so?
While she kept surviving, was like so fixated on finding out what this mystery is.
You think that's what it was? Not that he loved her and it was like an accident?
Like maybe at first, but like when Hugh Jackman and Trevor start talking to each other, like he doesn't even try to like convince him to like leave her alone or saying.
That's true.
He says like it all went pear-shaped because of her. I'm getting things back in order.
So I guess that whole I love you" was just a result of him having pleasure.
That's too much fun.
Yeah, like it wasn't like an act of like I really do love you. It's like freaking douchebag. As much here's the thing. As much as I like sex, as much as I enjoy sex, I gotta love the person I'm having sex with in order to enjoy it. All right.
So like hate sex, 100% off the table. I don't like you. We're not connected in that way.
Exactly. Like the wild man may be a wild man. but he's not going to have sex for the sake of having sex. He's going to have sex because he cares about the person.
With the Wildman character, yeah, it helps if he loves the person. As long as he likes the person, he's willing to like make arrangements.
But it's one of those things like, if I like the person, we're going to have some fun. If I love the person, it's a lifelong deal. Like, it just makes it all the more special. If I love the person, I'm only having sex with that one individual at that point. If you're the only one having sex with me at this time, it means I love you.
So back to Trevor. And ladies and gentlemen, just take a note that Trevor, this douchebag, does get his comeuppance. Because his ass gets mutilated and he gets dragged straight into hell.
Almost literally. How that happens is like in that sex dungeon we were talking about earlier, there's this little pedestal thing, a circle in the middle of the room that they were sitting on. Well, he's at this point, razor sharp wires are like pinning him to this platform. And like it's got his neck, it's got his arm, and it's peeling all the skin off of his arm. And at the height of that scene, he falls through that platform, and it shows that it became a portal to the Cenobite world. It goes from being a platform to almost looking like a well.
Mm-hmm. And what's happening at the same time, Uzumaki?
Okay, well, all that's going on. Hugh Jackman is bargaining with Pinhead to grant him a different gift. And she offers him great power and even more valuable pleasure. And as for Hugh Jackman, he's released.
He's almost relieved just to get it off of him.
And he's healed, too. He's healed, and then all of a sudden Leviathan impales him with a large chain and takes him away. So either way, he's getting screwed.
And what's that line, Wildman? That quote from Pinhead of all generations?
Oh, yeah. It's at this point, Pinhead goes like, Leviathan is pulling Hugh Jackman up into the sky with a chain. Goes like, we have such sights to show you. I was like, oh, she said the line!
I know, like this dude, he's he's basically going way up in the air. As for Trevor, dude, we did the goofy sound effects.
Woo! On that scene where he falls into the well that becomes the portal to the Cenobite world, you can play that goofy woo sound effect and it would just fit.
Yeah. So when Hugh Jackman is going up in the air and he flies like a bird, want to go away. Pinhead is talking to Riley. Pinhead is basically talking her into resurrecting her brother, Matt. She's going on like saying, don't you want to see your brother again? Think about it. That could be your gift. But then Riley's having none of it, and she refuses to wish for a gift because she knows that the Cenobites' reward are always twisted. And when I mean twisted, I mean you can look back at what Hugh Jackman had to go through.
Thank God for his healing factor.
You asked for the gift of sensation. You didn't specify what kind of sensation.
Yeah.
It's this weird thing, too. The human beings always expect for it to be from our perspective. When they're dealing with, once you see what they look like, how do you not be like, I don't think they view pleasure the same way I do?
Also, we were talking about this too while we were watching the movie. Pinhead is basically calling her out about her guilt and her life choices and her actions. And I'm all like, what about the other people in this movie?
So, the funny thing about it is, like, they're trying to get her to choose a gift, and they're like, well, obviously you want the gift of resurrection, so, but, like, Riley says, like, I've seen what your gifts are and how they work, I don't want any of it, and, like, they try to guilt trip her, like, so you choose a life of pain and enduring and heavy weight on your shoulders, and knowing what you did to all these people. And I'm like, part of me was like, half of the deaths that happened were not her fault. So Pinhead is like, so you choose the lament configuration, and they disappear, and the puzzle box turns into its quote classic square Rubik's Cube shape. And then after that, Riley and Colin get into the car, and Colin's like, what did you do? She's like, I made a choice. And he's like, did you make the right one? And they just drive off. And then it just cuts to this white void. And you hear the voice of Pinhead saying, Hugh Jackman, it's the time has come. And he kind of like wakes up, and he's like on this weird pedestal that starts to raise his arms, almost crucifixion style. And like the several sections of his skin starts to peel away, and it's really gross looking. He's turning into a Cenobite.
Which means, boys and gals, there might be a part 2. And this movie's successful enough.
When the transformation is done, and it zooms out, the pedestal that he's on looks like a freaking penis and balls. I even said during the watch through, like, why is he on a pedestal that looks like a penis?
Considering Hellraiser and all its themes and all its vices and temptations.
And who created Hellraiser?
That's not a far out possibility. That's a phallus.
All I have to say, Clive Barker, you are a bizarre human being. I would say you're only slightly less bizarre, but more interesting than H.R. Giger.
Or Rob Zombie.
Rob Zombie, I would say, is the normalest out of all of them. H.R. Giger is just a weird, bizarre person, where Clyde Barker is along the same lines as Giger, but is a better storyteller. H.R. Giger is just a weird human being that has interesting monster designs. That's all it is. But you can tell, like, he's a weird, sexual, bizarre person.
So yeah, for anyone who didn't know, this Hellraiser was the first one after Part 4 that had Clive Barker involved as producer.
Yep. That's right.
I would almost say that this is a reboot, a soft reboot, and a start to a trilogy. I would say the way it's structured, the way it ends, I would not be surprised if they try to make it into a trilogy.
Yeah, or more after that. A new series, maybe.
Maybe we'll see.
Hey, remember, guys? A long time ago, there was rumors that they wanted to make a TV show out of Hellraiser.
There's no way they could have made a TV show unless it was on a streaming service.
They could if they wanted to.
No. I mean, there's no way they could have done it and have it air on TV. It had to have been done specifically for a streaming service because they don't have to deal with the same kind of censorship.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Or in HBO, they don't have any restrictions, or Showtime.
Oh.
Yeah. Because on HBO, you can have all the cussing, the swearing, and the sex that you want. Hell, Game of Thrones is on that.
I don't understand why people like Game of Thrones. It was so lame.
I love Game of Thrones, man.
You're lame.
That show was awesome.
Every time I tried to watch an episode, half of the episode was just boobs and naked women. I was like, this is really cool, but I kind of wanted to see more along the Lord of the Rings. So, like, I just turned it off and stopped watching.
If I wanted to see tits and ass, I just look at tits and ass.
Yeah, there's the internet for that.
I mean, if you have those feelings, then that's fine. But as for me myself, I mean, I love Game of Thrones.
I did try to watch it. I did.
7.
I did.
The last season, pretty disappointing.
I did actually try to watch it. It's just every time I did watch it, half the episode was boobs and butt. So I'm like, if I wanted to see this, I can just go on the internet. I wanted to see a fantasy show. Is this just boobs? I can see that on the internet any day of the week.
It is a fantasy show. It's just in its way, like Berserk has the same thing, just not the same amount of content. It has the gore that Game of Thrones offers, but not quite the same amount of sexual content that they have. But
again, if I wanted to see the sexual content, I would just go on the internet. I go to watch the fantasy show for the monsters, swords, and dragons, man. Not the boobs.
Hey, Game of Thrones offers that too, man.
But every time I watched it was just boobs.
I don't know. Maybe if you saw the more episodes, you might change your mind. But I know what you're trying to say. It's just like the specific episodes you saw The episodes you saw basically had, like, say, the cherry on top as the entree.
Yes.
Yeah.
You wanted
Yeah.
the course.
And I already had that cherry pop, so I was like, I don't need this.
That was the episodes that you saw.
Yes.
Okay. If you watch it from the beginning, though, the beginning, like season 1, didn't really have that much.
No, season 1 killed off my favorite actor of the show.
Sean Bean.
Yeah. I'm like, great, it's Boromir all over again. Thanks.
Well, it's Sean Bean.
Michael Bean died way more than Sean Bean did.
Okay, one topic I wanted to, like, discuss, like, now that we basically finished the plot. What you guys think of the way the Cenobites operated this time around? Again, I want to remind you, I've only seen, like, besides this, I've only seen the first 2 movies. If you don't, like, already know what the boxes are, if you don't know about, like, say, pain and pleasure and all that stuff, if you don't already know about, like, what the boxes do, something about the boxes draws people in.
Like the autistic girl in the second one.
Wow, man, like, you know the quote better, like, it is not solving it's not the box that summons us.
No. And granted, this is just how my mind works. It just remembers details better than most people. I just remember details.
Right.
The quote is, it is not hands that summon us, it's desire.
Desire, yeah.
So
desire.
basically, in that scene in the second movie, an autistic girl is solving the puzzle because crazy doctor is trying to make her do it. So it's more like a autistic compulsion to do it. One, she's good at it, and it's just how her autism works or whatever. So she's just doing it by impulse, not an actual desire.
Yeah. Like, I was saying, like, she's just doing it because that's just her routine, solving puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it pretty well too. Like, she was doing it out of impulse, not desire.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, with everyone else, something about the puzzle box compels people to, like, want to solve it, want to work at it. And because you want to find out just what's in there, or the desire to, like, have the pleasures, sights that could only be shown by the Cenobites, or the goal to, like, open that box is, like, what triggers it. This time around, they're a lot more direct. My reasoning is, like, the way the box works, like, there's always a chance that, like, someone would, like, lose interest. It just, like, instead of solving the puzzle to completion, they'll just, like, set it down, maybe come back to it later.
Well, I think that's actually talked upon in the book and all that, where in some in the early movies. Like, in the book, only the best of the best can solve it. Like, you can work at it for days and only get, like, a couple pieces to actually move here and there. And so it's not supposed to be an easy thing to solve. It's supposed to seduce, like, one of those things where, like, your desire to solve it grows the more you work at it.
There's probably some mystical force, but it's also, like your own wish to solve it. It's not just magical manipulation.
Right. It works with what you have already going on.
This time around, when they were, like, writing the movie, someone must have had the idea, like, oh, what if someone, like, what if they don't have, like, that drive to go all the way, like, all these different shapes? Well, they had a bit of incentive by having, like, knives hidden inside each of the configurations.
The way I interpreted it was one person wasn't supposed to solve every single one of them, because every time you solved one, a knife would set out. So it's like each one is supposed to be solved by a different person, and the owner of it, the one that wants the wish or the gift, is the one that gives each form of the puzzle box to another person.
Yeah, I was going to get to that, but you summed it up.
Oh.
It's part of the new rules. Like, what I was saying earlier might have been, like, a hypothesis, but as the movie goes on, you figure, like, oh, the reason why it has those knives, and, like, they're much simpler, but it's also part of the ritual, how there's 6 forms, and for each form, they require someone to be marked as a blood sacrifice.
So the interesting thing about this is this movie puts much more emphasis on the puzzle box itself and the puzzle aspect, where in the original movies, depending on the movie, you could fiddle around with it more than others. Like, as the movies went on, it became easier and easier to solve. But the puzzle box itself didn't really, like... There wasn't a lot of turning and twisting and manipulation to it. Like, it did, like, two to three different things shape-wise. Like, it popped up in one spot here and there, and then every now and then it would, like, twist and, like, turn or something. And then in the second one, the final shape, it, like, did that, like, pointed diamond thing. Where in this one, it has, like, several different forms. And then, and by contrast, in the book, it didn't change shape. The way you solved it is like you somehow took it apart and then reassembled it.
Imagine how tough that would be.
Yeah, that's like that went in.
How would you know the configuration you're supposed to put the pieces into?
I think it was kind of like more like you put the pieces together based on how if they went together and fit and snapped together.
Okay.
And then it's been a long time, so I don't remember exactly. I don't know if the box in the book had different shapes that it went into, but if it did, I'm assuming whatever shape it took was reflected spiritually or supernaturally through the desire that you wanted. That's my guess. I don't remember because it's been so long.
I think we covered everything, but like during the movie, like the rational part of my brain, at least with Riley, even if you weren't aware of the magical properties or how it's involved with the Cenobites, if you knew that the puzzle box had knives at different configurations, and a lot of those knives popped up when you like pushed it in a certain way, I think I would at least try like have a stick or like a brick or something to like put like that extra force instead of using my bare hands.
I would be using something as like a barrier.
Something tells me even if you did catch on, the Cenobites wouldn't have it. They would find some way to manipulate you into cutting yourself or cutting somebody else. They would get their blood.
Yeah, and the only reason Riley escaped the blade is because by dumb luck of having her hand in just the right position and area where the blade didn't get her. The weird thing about it is like the blade pops up where you would naturally think to place your hands to solve the puzzle. That's the dangerous part of it.
Yeah, and like unless I'm mistaken, every blade, it's either activated by a push of the box or a pull. You would think you would like put two and two together and at least come to that conclusion. Mm-hmm. Like to at least at least try to avoid nicking myself or whatever. I don't know. This is just us overthinking things as movie fans.
You know what I can see happening with the Wild Man? You know what I can see happening?
What's that?
He solves the puzzle box, gets nicked by the blade. The Cenobites come, see who it is, and he's like, "Oh hell no, bye."
We already dealt with this guy once.
And then like Pinhead sees and is like, "You, I don't want to deal with you anymore. Like, that was a wild night. I don't want to deal with it. No, go away." Like, I don't know who got hurt more in that whole ordeal, you or me. I still have scars. You're lucky. You actually heal. I don't. Go away. You're a nuisance. That's the beauty of the Wild Man. He's so crazy and shenanigan-y that like people that have dealt with them just like don't want to deal with them again.
And the people that do deal with them, they either like have that rare understanding of what he's like on the inside, or they're just as crazy.
Yeah, like it's this weird thing. Like the people that do deal with him have 1 to 3 outcomes. The ones you just mentioned, or the third one where like they just become more and more crazy as they deal with him as they go along. He rubs off on them.
Closing thoughts?
Yes,
I actually really did like this movie. If I were to rate it, I'd probably say, okay, just so I remember, there's Wildside, there's
from the best to least. It's Wildside, Rambunctious Side, Tame Side, Lame Side.
It's rambunctious for me.
Yes.
I
Okay.
thought it was a good movie. Not the greatest movie I've ever seen, but I do have to say, for a horror movie that's come out, I would say that this is one of the better horror movies I've seen this year. I'm not going to be addressing Halloween Kills in case any of you are wondering my thoughts on that. I have a review that will be coming up quite shortly for this recording. If I had to rank it from a personal scale, from 1 star to 5 stars, I'd give this a solid 3.9 out of 5. I thought it was a pretty good movie. The characters weren't the greatest, kind of bland. I did like the effects in this film. I thought the acting was fine for the most part. So yeah, good movie.
And Decker, what do you give this? What rating do you give this movie? Because you forgot to do it. Because I forgot to do it.
For the reasons that I stated earlier, I agree in giving this a rambunctious side rating.
Okay. So I guess it's my turn. Yay! Prepared to be here for another hour. No, I'm kidding. This movie was better than I expected it to be. Because again, I went into it just out of curiosity. I wonder what they're going to do with it. So in terms of the characters, a lot of the characters were mostly one-dimensional. You could tell what part everyone played for the most part in terms of generacy, but it was done well. The story itself was actually kind of cool. I liked what they did with the puzzle and made it more of an actual puzzle. I liked what they did with the Cenobites in terms of like making them different and the portrayal of Pinhead and all. In terms of the designs, I thought they were unsettling. They were
Really?
Yeah, I thought they were unsettling and while not gruesome, they were uncomfortable to look at for the most part. I thought the design of Chatter was really interesting because his upper torso was like squished together, sticking out like a bolted plate or something. So that was kind of cool. There was this one Cenobite that didn't have a lot of screen time, but his head and face floated atop his shoulders and body while not being attached, and the face was like jutted out with a gap in between it. It reminded me a lot of the monsters from Silent Hill Shattered Memories and some of the weird forms that they could take through later on in the game that are more abstract and kind of weird looking. That's what it reminded me of. So I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. In terms of Pinhead, I thought the actress that played Pinhead did a good job, and she played it much more what you would expect a quote hell priest to act like. And she played a much more observing position. She just stood back and watched things unfold with every so often kind of whispering in the ear to try and entice someone. It was a different take on the character and done well. Hugh Jackman was great as always.
Yeah, Hugh
Jackman was amazing in this.
I think he's a runner-up for another Academy Award.
Exactly. This is probably his second best role he ever played, with the first being Wolverine. Hugh Jackman was great in all of this. Someone's going to be like, wait, Hugh Jackman's in it? And then come and look at the movie. Like, what the frick? Not getting the joke, and that's fine. I am okay with that. I am okay with that. If they can't get the joke, that's on them. But
I want to see how many people like in the comments saying like, oh, like you guys are joking around. Like I want to see how many people are like going to be good sports about it. How many people are going to say you liars?
So I would give this rating like. For real, guys, this is probably the first rambunctious side rating I've given. And I give that mostly because this is not usually my cup of tea in terms of movies or horror movies. Like I said before, I was never a super heavy Hellraiser fan. I watched the first 4 mostly because they were on TV or the movie channels. I never usually went out of my way to see them. but when I did see them, they were okay. They're just not my usual cup of tea. But that being said, this is a good, solid movie, and I would be curious to see if they made sequels, what they did with them. So I would check out sequels just to see what they did. But this is a solid, rambunctious side for me.
Wait, what the hell?
We have such sights to show you.
Okay, now, good. Good thing I checked it because my mic was not on it.
Oh man, we don't want
That I do not want a repeat of Silent Hill. No, it is a very good thing I double checked. Thank you, God. Oh, thank you, God. I did not want a repeat of that. Oh, that would have been a nightmare. Ow! Okay. Today I'm joined with Uzumaki and Dekarumi. Today I almost had it. Today I'm joined with Uzumaki and I had it.
To sum it up, the movie follows.
And
Take two.
take 2, take 3. Let me catch you off real quick and lay this out. Wait, you said you're editing this, right?
Yes.
Okay. So well, then do what you want. I don't care. I don't have to deal with it.
I accepted the challenge. You might want to say that again. I didn't hear you. Maybe your audio did.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
when you were talking about how she said "I love you," for some reason we didn't hear that.
okay. So maybe I was going too fast and too loud.
All right, I'm getting hung up on I'm getting hung up on trying to elaborate on the "I love you" what, and that kills the mood or something like that.
I don't know why that would kill the mood.
During the watch party, I was like there's two jokes you can get from that. Either it's I told you this was strictly a one night stand, or it could have been we're strictly friends with benefits. Don't bring love into this. It gets more complicated.
Not just around it, but it's over the building itself, like a barrier.
Yes, it's almost like a cage. Mm-hmm. Oops, slide spoilers. It looks like a cage. I wonder why that is. I'll edit that out.
She finds Hugh Jackman's journal, and it's all about how he had to get buffed for Wolverine. And then she sees the apparition of her brother, and then immediately after the apparition disappears, the boyfriend and a brother lover boy find her.
And Nora, don't forget Nora.
My lover girl?
Yeah, the lover girl.
The hot Asian, always a good choice. Always a good choice. You can't go wrong with hot Asian. So they're sitting down in that dungeon area where they're at, and they're kind of looking what is this place? Riley's I think it's a sex dungeon. Which I have one too. My sex dungeon is actually much more cleanly and nice looking. It is not gross or doom and gloom or ugly. It's actually this is a nice room. I could see it. It's much more romantic looking. Where this one's just it's just a few steps above being a medieval torture chamber. So Decker, what are you wearing?
Khakis.
You've seen that commercial.
He sounds hideous. Well, she's a guy, so.
And if you're wondering what's going on with my voice, it's because it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and I have been screaming my voice out, so it's very hoarse and tired. So
No, you were extremely hyper.
I was extremely hyper during this podcast, and I am sorry if y'all found that interesting. Good for you. Yeah. Don't call me the wild man for nothing.
But like someone in the comment section is gonna be like, "Oh wow, man, I like it when you're this rambunctious." Imagine that in the comment section.
Watch that be Fatal doing that just to screw with me. Hugh Jackman was amazing in this.
I think he's a runner-up for another Academy Award.
Exactly. This is probably his second best role he ever played, with the first being Wolverine.
Oh no! Don't forget his role in that amazing masterpiece, Les Miserables.
You shut your whore mouth right now.
No, I think he meant The Greatest Show. I mean, yeah, the greatest.
No, he meant that horrible musical.
No, no.
I have a whole history on that movie that I will not go into at this time. I can go into it another time because it's too late to do that. I can make a whole essay on why I hate that movie.
What?
Moving on.
Greatest movie of all time.
You shut your mouth.
It's better than John Carpenter's Thing.
Okay, now I'm just going to have to come over and slap you right now. There you go.
I think that it's more.
No, you're slapped.
It's more entertaining than I think it's more entertaining than Stan Helsing.
Expect a teabag tonight, buddy.